13, we'll read about 3 verses of scripture here. I was going to preach to you. I thought I had what I was going to preach to you last week, but in the grand scheme of things, I think I'll put that off and preach this instead. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward verse of scripture here, one that we have without a doubt heard many times. Start with verse 11, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. It just simply says, "When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. For now, we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I am known. And now abide faith, hope, charity, these three, but the greatest of these three is charity or love." I want to preach to you from this title, Pareidolia, or what you see is what you get. Pareidolia, or what you see is what you get. Put your Bibles down, give them a really good hand clap of praise this morning. Hallelujah. Word of our praise today. You can be seated. I spent the last few days out in West Texas with the ASR group, had a great time, all that good stuff. And one of the things that we did, which I thought was a pretty good idea since it was 100 degrees, was on Friday during the day, we went and toured the Lone Star Caverns. Anybody been to the Lone Star Caverns? It's just right outside of Burnett, right there on, right not too far north of Marble Falls. Pretty little state park, and we were, I finally have reached that stage in my life where used to the things that I did, was things like, go ride dirt bikes, raft down rivers, ride bucking horses. Now I go walk through caves with old people. And we had a whole bunch of old people. And we were a very slow group. And in the process of this, we had a little young lady that was our tour guide. She was just sweet as she could be. And just a ton of fun. She picked fun, she poked fun at us, and we poked fun back. But we were probably halfway through these caverns, and she stopped, and she had pointed out, I was walking in the very, very back trying to make sure that I picked up everybody who failed. I couldn't quite understand what she was saying, but as I got closer, she was showing them this formation, this rock thing that was stuck out the side of the cave there, and she said, "This is called," one of them said, I think she said it was a buzzard's head or a pterodactyl. And I got to look in, and where I was standing, I wasn't seeing either one of them myself. And I moved a little bit, and I looked, and I saw again, and sure enough, it kind of had this pterodactyl-looking thing, had that long pointy beak with the big old eyeball, and had a little horn out the top of his head. It was pretty cool, it really was. And then she said something, and I don't profess to know a whole lot, so I didn't know what she said. She said, "This is an example of pareidolia." I said, "Pareidolia, that sounds wrong to me." I said, "Please say that again." She said, "Pareidolia." I said, "Do you even know how to spell?" Well, she spelled it for me, and she spelled it wrong. And it is pareidolia. And it is, in her words, and this is what caught my attention, she said, "This is where you see the familiar in the unfamiliar." And as soon as she said it, I stopped. I said, "Could you please spell that for me one more time?" I pulled out my phone, I get to my notes. I said, because I feel like I can preach that. And some of the folks that was there started making fun of him and said, "How in the world are you going to preach about Pareidolia. I said, you didn't hear what she said it was. I said, she said it was seeing the familiar in the unfamiliar. I said, isn't that what faith is? He says, seeing things that you need evidence of something you can't see. And I began to think about that for a few days. And then I began to, and when I got back to the cabin we were staying at, I got my phone where I had some cell signal, and I researched it and I looked at it, and I'm pretty familiar with this particular scenario. Never knew it was called Pareidolia. I didn't know that. I never heard that word before, I guess, in my life. But anybody ever laid down as a child and looked up in the clouds and said, you know, I see a cat or a horse or a gun or a boat? Or you was laying there with your girlfriend and you was feeling romantic and you said, oh, I see a heart with an arrow through it. Just whatever it might be. Anybody ever looked up at the clouds going down the road, even as an adult, looked up and said, man, that looks just like a whatever, a bear. Man, I began to think about all the times in my life I've glanced up and something has caught my eye in these clouds. I said, man, that looks just like whatever. I never say that looks like a cloud, because that's what I'm looking at. But yet I'm seeing something that my brain is identifying by just something that my brain's making up. There's no line in the sky. There's no tree. There's no boat. There's nothing in the cloud. That's just a cloud, but my brain tells me this is what you're seeing. How about anybody ever went out on a full moon and looked up and tried to find the man in the moon? You do know he's upside down, right? His head's at the bottom of the moon, his feet in the wood piles on the top of the moon. You got to look at him upside down. But I've actually looked up and I said, you know what? I can see where somebody say that might be a man stacking wood on the moon. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's another. Whatever it is, we can even go so far as, you ever, some of y'all maybe too young, but anybody ever been in church and one of them old time evangelists pulled out a record player and all them rock and roll records and played the music backwards? Anybody heard that in church? A little backwards masking? My Lord, y'all been shouting. Man, you can play some of them records backwards, you can hear all kind of crazy things. 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. I'm coming for you, I'm coming for you. You're going to hell, you're going to hell. Nah, the devil is Lord, devil is Lord, devil is Lord. But you hear all kind of, your brain will tell you, you're hearing all kinds of things. You know what you hear? Static. But there's a whole, I'm talking about preacher after preacher bringing these evangelists in and they play the music. Why? Because there's something about our brain. If the situation is right and you have the right, you're in the right place, your brain will tell you all kinds of things about stuff that is not, it doesn't, you can't see it. Anybody, if you said, hey, do you see, yeah, I don't see that. We was in a cave just not too long further, and Nathan Stanley's wife, April, is walking down the little thing, and she looks over to the right, and she said, look, it's a bed. I said, a bed? I said, that's not a bed. She said, yeah, it's a bed. I said, no, that's a tongue. That's exactly what it looked like from the side. It looked like something was sticking its tongue out at you. I mean, I saw it. I could see it. She said, that's not a tongue, it's a bed. I said, no. She said, yeah. Well, on the way back, I asked, I said, what is that right there? She said, some people say that's the demon in this cave and he's sticking his tongue out at you. I said, I told you so. There's something about our brains that, you know, we, as human beings, if we are not careful, we imagine things. Our brain shows us stuff that sometimes is non-existent. It can get us in trouble. It can find a place in our lives where we see things that aren't there because of maybe somebody says something and you overhear it and they're talking about something else, but you think they're talking about this thing, and now you get offended or your feelings are hurt, or you go to whoever it was that you thought they was talking about. Come to find out that wasn't even the case. Your brain made all that stuff up. Your brain kind of goes a little haywire sometimes. And I get that, and that's not really what I'm here to preach about. I just want you to realize there's something unique about this thing up here that if we're not careful, we need to understand. And when we understand how to use this correctly, I read you this verse because these verses have always bothered me. This is what it says. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child. This is the one that gets me. I thought as a child. But then he says this, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. And I tell you right now, I have heard more people preach to you about how you should not be a child and you need to put away those things and you need to grow up and you need to learn how to be an adult and you need to be this and you need to be that. I'm here to tell you this morning, I believe that's 100% false preaching. It does not say that as what you're supposed to do. It literally says, when I was a child, I spoke, I understood, I thought as a child, and then it just simply makes a statement. I became a man and I put away childish things. This Bible in other places teaches me I ought to be like a child. So how could this be something I can preach to you and say, you need to grow up? I can find other scriptures for that, but this isn't one of them. Because what it says then, it says, when I became a child, or when I became a man, I put away all these childish things. And this is the result of that. Now we see through a glass darkly. Now I only know in part. Now I only understand in part. Whenever I grew up, and I thought that now I am a grown-up saint, you just took away the most powerful thing that you possess in your arsenal to live for God, and that is to think and see like a child. Hang in there with me. We good about being. Do we want, Sister Kimball, do we want you to be an honest, upright, moral, ethical, smart citizen of the world? Yes. Yes. I believe that it's good to make decisions properly. I believe that if you really acted like a child in the business world, you probably would be in business very long. There's some things that require education. There's some things that require a decision that's based in something besides reality. And then there's some that you better have some reality. You're going to make bad decisions. And in business, you better understand some things or you're going to find yourself in trouble. However, if you take that business, and here, for all you smart business people out there, I know I'm talking to all that bunch right in there. Captain's gone, but y'all relay the message. You take that business sense, you take that return on your investment thought, you take that how do I grow, and how do I do this, and how do I do this, and the professor said this, and the professor said that, and the real truth, man, you bring that to the house of God, and you try to live for God with that thought process, you are doomed for failure. Why? Because you need to think like a child when you live for God. You need to look at stuff and lay on your back and look up into the glories and say, you know what, that doesn't look like none of the clouds I know, but man, I see a blessing right there. Hold on a minute. Look at all. Look up there in the moon. Whoop! I think that's a blessing. Well, you can't. That's impossible. It's not there. I don't see that. There you go, listening to all those other adults. When she said, it is the ability to see the familiar in the unfamiliar. Do you have enough familiar relationship with God? Have you gotten familiar enough with Him to understand His blessings and His love and His mercy and His grace? Are you familiar enough with that so that when everything else is against you and you're fighting your fight and the issues are there and the doctor says you got cancer and the bill collectors are calling, can you then see in your mind's eye the grace and the mercy and the love and the kindness and the blessings of God? Because you need to see that familiar thing in the face of all of that that's against you. Why? Because if you can't see that, you're never going to live for God. The world's going to eat you up. Problems going to eat you up. The doctor's reports, the bill collectors, the liens, the judgments, they're all going to eat you up. Why? Because when you look at those, it is what it is. How many times have you needed something from God and saw no way He could give that to you? There wasn't anything in place that was going to provide that. It could have been well, I need a new car. Well, you know what your bank account looked like. You know your credit score was minus 300. Can you get that low? I'm just curious. Can you get a minus credit score? Let's pretend like you can. If not, it was 1. 0, 0, 1. You knew that. You knew your family wasn't going to buy you no car. Because the last one they bought you, you wrecked and didn't pay for. That's bad. You're in a world of hurt, right? And if that's all you saw, if that's all you looked at, if that was all you understood, you would be crying and moaning in the corner and driving your little 90 or your little 68. When did they make Yugos? In the 70s probably, huh? Some of you don't even know what a Yugo is. How about a Gremlin? How about a Pinto? That's what you'd be driving around for the rest of your life. But no, you want to know how a Christian should live? Kind of like that same guy going in and walking down into the BMW dealership and saying, I'm here to test drive me one of them BMWs. Like, well, you looking to buy one? Oh, God's going to provide. You say that's crazy. Anybody been in Amway? Hey, buddy of mine, he went in Amway. He won't be dying. That's what they teach in Amway. Every week, go down to something that you want. He went down to the Ford dealership. I want to drive one of them big old expeditions. He couldn't afford a bicycle. He'd get in there and he'd talk up there. Man, I really like all this stuff. Man, we're going to go take a test drive. That little old guy yeah, boy, he had to smell a fish on the hook, boy. And he'd get out there, man, they'd give him a couple mile test drive. Boy, he'd boy, man, I like this. Show me how this works right over here, man. Oh, man, that's good. But, man, what's the price on this thing? $95,000. That ain't no money. Lord, my $95, that's pocket change. Man, that poor salesman probably goes, oh, yes. Well, Kyle, get that thing back to the dealership, climb out of it, hand the key back to the salesman. Salesman said, well, you want me to go start the paperwork on it? Oh, no, I ain't here to buy it today. I couldn't afford that if I had a couple paychecks put together. I'm just down here getting the feel of it so I know whenever I become diamond what it's going to feel like for me to drive an expedition. We laughed at him, right? Why did we laugh at him? Because we became adults. And we put away that childish thinking. And we didn't see what he was seeing. We didn't understand what he was thinking. Because he was thinking outside of his situation. And he was thinking a place where he was going to go. Here's something he was going to get in the future. And what he was doing was validating all the work and the effort that he's doing right now. Something about living for God. We need to validate what we're doing right now. Why? Because we'll get tired and weary and well doing. But when you understand that there is a heaven to gain and a hell to shun, and there's blessing upon blessing, and he owns the cattle of 1,000 hills, and there's nothing that he can't do, and he's full of grace and mercy. Whenever that's going on in your life, and you validating this walk that you got, there's something about doing that allows you to see things that is not available to the normal, average, everyday worldly eyesight. I walked by a lot of stuff in this cave, and man, they kind of got to be a little old game. Man, every rock folks would pass. Oh, that's a possum. It's not a possum. It's a rock. We was in this place, and she said, look, she said, before I turn these lights off, do not touch the shiny objects. I'm thinking, all right. Because there wasn't any shiny at the time. Okay. She said, and look, she said, they are not diamonds. They have no value. And then she called them some crystals. Dude, when she turned the lights off and flipped them other lights on, I wanted some of them in my pocket. Do you know the reason why she told, and she mentioned it like 3 times, they are not valued. They look like diamonds. They are not diamonds. Why would she tell a bunch of people this? Because there's something about our brain. When that light went on and our brain saw them little shiny things up there in the rocks, we automatically think, woo, that's a diamond. I wonder if I could steal it. I wonder would they say anything if I put that in my pocket? I got tickled. I said, folks, what she's really saying is they're worth very, very much, and they really are diamonds, and she's just trying to get y'all not to steal them. She thought that was the funniest thing in the world. I said, she's using reverse psychology. I said, look at them diamonds up there shining. I said, in fact, if y'all would pick 2 of them, pick one for me. She said, what's funny? She said she had a little child. Could have been maybe 7 years old. Little boy. She said when they got to the end of the cave, she noticed his pockets in his jeans was all puffed out. And he had 2 handfuls of these crystals. I'm talking about handfuls. She said, I was so tickled. And he was so mad when we had to take them from him. She said, he was too young. She said, but it's a felony for you to leave the cave with these. This is a state park. This is a problem here. In that boy's mind, he was the richest young man that he knew. Because his brain was telling him, these are worth something. But everybody else looking at him had been taught and had been told. Have you been told that God doesn't love you? Have you been told that you can't live for God? Have you been told that living for God is too tough? Have you been told there's no fun living for God? If you've been told these things, you like all them other adults. Why can't you be that little boy and go, but the Bible says that I don't have to worry about all this stuff that y'all worry about. All I got to do is trust in Him. The Bible tells me that all I got to do is ask. The Bible tells me all I got to do is repent. The Bible tells me, why am I so worried about that? But He said He loved me, that He was always going to love me. Why are you telling me that He doesn't love me and that I can't live for Him? Because we forget, we put away these absolutely God-like qualities. You want to know why the Bible says that we should be like the little children that came to Him and sat on His knee? He said, some little children do that. Why would He do that? He was God wrapped in flesh. Let me let you into a little insight. He thinks like that. If he didn't see and understand and think as a child, why would he have ever thought that there was ever going to be somebody serve him when he breathed the breath of life into Adam the first time? No, he got to looking down through time and going, you know what? I don't know if Sister Kimball's going to love me, but I believe she will. And I'm going to see her living for God. Oh, but hold on a minute. The angel come to her and said, did you see that, Sister Kimball? She's smoking some reefer. And like the Lord, she's about to shoot somebody. She's drunk as a skunk. She done beat half the people up in the bar. Lord, the bar's now empty. How in the world is that going to live for you? And God says, the child in God said, you don't understand. I'm seeing things the way I'm believing they're going to be. I'm looking at things through lenses that you don't have. Why can't we be like God? Why can't we understand that whenever I put His glasses on, things change? It don't look like the world sees. Have you ever? You with somebody and they look up, they see this thing in the clouds, right? And you know, you look up there. This is how it goes. You look up there in the cloud. Why are you doing that? Because most of the time, those hidden, familiar things that's hiding in the unfamiliar, they're hard to see. And you have to squint. And you have to get all of the other stuff around in your vision. The sunlight, the peripheral stuff, the trees, and you got to get focused in on that thing that they're saying is there that you can't quite see. But if you get yourself just right, oh, there's his ears, and there's his little nose, and oh, I see it now. When the unfamiliar is all around you and it's dark, it's hard to see God's blessing. When it's rough and the seas are rough, you ain't listening to somebody say, "Oh, don't worry, it's going to go." No, you ain't listening to that. When the doctor looks at you and says, "You got cancer, you got this other thing," and then somebody says, "Don't worry about it." Preacher comes by and says, "Don't worry about it, it's going to be all right." You ain't seeing that. Because you see the darkness of the unfamiliarity of what you're looking at right in front of your face. And you have to learn how to swim. You know how to swim? When you get home, you've cried your eyes out. You call the preacher, you call your best friends, you've done everything you know to do. You call your mom and them, you call your daddy and them, you call your cousins and your brothers and your sisters and your uncles too. And you done all that you do. You don't call everybody you know how to call. You get home all by yourself and it's dark, and you're in the unfamiliar. You haven't been here before, and you're going, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" You better learn how to swim. You know how you swim? You squint and you find Him hiding in all of that darkness. You find Him by searching out the Scriptures and going, "You know what? I need to see what God can do for me. But yet I can't see it in my situation. So let me find something that I can put my sight on, and let me see if I can see that. And if I can focus on that, I won't have to focus on the other stuff." And you begin to search, and you begin to squint. You begin to study. You begin to look. You begin to go, "Man, You read something like this. "Say to me, O God, for the waters are coming to my soul. I sink in deep mire, where there is no standing. I am coming to deep waters, where the floods overflow. I am weary. I am weary of my cry." Yeah, you see the evangelist in me right there just felt that. Pastor did, but the evangelist did. I am weary of my crying. My throat is dry. My eyes fail when I wait for my God. They that hate me, you better listen to me. Anybody got an ounce of discernment and spirituality ought to feel. They that hate me without a cause are more than the hairs of my head. Those that would destroy me, being mine enemies wrongfully, are mighty. God, you even know my foolishness, and my sins are not even hid from thee. I have become a stranger unto my brethren, and an alien unto my mother's children. I made sackcloth with my garment. But as for me, my prayer is unto the Lord in an acceptable time. Deliver me out of the mire. Don't let me sink. Deliver me from those that hate me. Deliver me out of deep waters. Don't let the waters overflow me. Don't let the deep swallow me up. Don't let the pit shut her mouth on me. Hear me, God, for thy loving kindness is good. Hide not thy face from me, for I am in trouble. Hear me speedily. Draw nigh unto my soul. I'll skip all the way to the end of that chapter. Thou which hast shown me great and sore troubles shall quicken me again, and shall bring me up again from the depths of the earth. Thou shalt increase my greatness and comfort me on every side. I'll praise thee with the psaltery, even the truth, O my God. Until thee will I sing with the harp, O Holy One of Israel. My lips shall greatly rejoice when I sing unto thee, and my soul which thou hast redeemed. As we stand to our feet this morning, my tongue shall talk of thy righteousness all the day long. Why? For they are confounded, for they are brought into shame that sought my hurt. I'm here to tell somebody this morning, you may be in an unfamiliar place. You may be in a place that you've never been before. You may be in a place where they're against you and hate you and are against you even unknown. But I'm here to tell you, if you will but somehow see something familiar in the unfamiliar, if you can just somehow see the love of God as it's working in your life, as it's doing something for you, as it's changing things in your situation, you may not see it at first. You're going to have to look for it. You're going to have to search for it. You're going to have to desire it. You're going to have to pray your way through it. You're going to have to get to the point where you're going to have to believe, even in the midst of your trouble, that God is going to move on your behalf. He is going to do what you are asking Him to do. You have to see the familiar in God and the unfamiliarity of the world. I speak to doubt right now. I speak to unbelief right now. I can put my finger on the end of your nose right now. I speak to the doubt and the things in your brain that's keeping you up at night, that's telling you you don't handle, you don't stand a chance, you ain't got a shot. Let me tell you something, sweetheart. God's kids always have a chance. They got the greatest thing that this world has ever known, and that's the ability to think like a child and say, I don't care where I'm at or who I am or what I've done, but I believe Daddy still loves me. I believe Daddy still cares for me. I believe God still wants to do great things for me. I'm not done yet. I'm not through yet. I'm not over yet. I speak to that doubt right now. That doubt comes from the pits of hell.